Hello everyone and welcome to my Walt Disney World planning vlog. Today I'm going to be covering everything that you need to know for planning your next trip to Walt Disney World. Whether you haven't booked yet and you're not sure where to start, or you're fully booked and you want some ideas and tips and inspiration on actually logistically planning your trip and making a schedule, then this is the video for you. And I can also share that we have booked our next trip. We're going back in December 2022. We're on the final stretch for the double-digit countdown. The 100 days should be when this video goes up, which is very exciting. I hope you're all looking forward to new vlogs coming. And if you're new around here, hello, my name's Brogan and I make travel, lifestyle, home, and of course, Disney vlogs. I cover Disney parks planning, packing, budget, hauls, vlogs, and everything in between. So make sure you check out my playlists for Disney content and subscribe if you haven't already. And yes, we'll be vlogging our next trip and I'm going to be sharing everything in the lead up to it as well. So if you are interested in all of that, then keep watching. I'm going to give you all my best tips and advice for planning a trip to Walt Disney World. Before we get into the tips, I just wanted to give you a little bit of a backstory for those of you that are new around here. Even if you're not, then this will give you a bit more context into our next trip while we've booked what we book and what I think about when I'm booking a trip. So long story short, we booked a trip in 2019 that got cancelled each year, as I'm sure you can imagine why. And we were meant to go in May 2022, and I really thought it was going to happen. Earlier this year, we had a health condition come up for Benji. He has a heart tumour and he was due to have open heart surgery. And then the doctors decided to postpone that treatment to another date later. We don't know when it is going to happen. Could be years, could be months, we don't know. So that was obviously a really scary, difficult time for us and we're still navigating it to this day. However, we decided to cancel our May trip because we just didn't think the timing was quite right. And instead we went on a cruise that sailed from Southampton, which was amazing. It was nice and leisurely and perfect for a first trip back for Benj. And then we decided to do Disneyland Paris. So we cancelled the Walt Disney World trip with attraction tickets and they were amazing. And they helped us book Disneyland Paris, which was a really great trip. We basically got to understand what Benji needed, how much time he needed for, rest and breaks. And even though he'd been cleared to fly and go on roller coasters and drink alcohol and everything, we still weren't 100% sure if going back to Florida was best. But obviously, as time has gone on, we did that trip in June. We feel really confident that we're ready to return. And as we've been planning our wedding and our honeymoon and everything, we are basically looking between now and that in 2024 and where Disney fits into that. So we originally were going to go back in 2023, and when Disney announced the dining credit offer for UK guests, we were looking at all the options and nothing was quite fitting and working for us. And I also got the opportunity to go out there to Walt Disney World in May with the Disney PR team. They very kindly invited me on a press trip, which was honestly mind-blowing. It was one of those trips that I still have to pinch myself about. However, it was really hot, really hot. And weirdly, the dates fell exactly when we were meant to go. And it was a really big eye-opener for me because I realised that that time of year was not good for Benj. Trying to fit everything into a week and cramming it all in was not a good pace. So I knew we're going to need at least 12 to 14 days. I knew that May was not a good time, and actually that meant the window of when we could go back got smaller because we've done September and October a few times now. I've done Halloween, love it by the way, but we've done that time of year. I have already now done Flower and Garden, so the only big season we haven't done is Christmas. So as I'm sure you can imagine, the logistics of trying to work out when to go, we decided that Christmas time would be great. That's how this trip came about. But there are 5 things that I need to think about and consider before I even book a trip. So I thought we'd run through those because I think they're really important and they're the 5 things that I always sort of tell people and advise people to consider. Number 1 is when we're actually available. Obviously work schedules, trips we already have booked in, weddings, events, theatre shows, anything that we've already got booked cancels out for us. And so looking at the diary, we have to look at the exact dates, and that sometimes limits us down. We then look at the time of year in terms of weather and how busy it is. So we look at when it would be too hot. So I think for us, the months that are best are October to probably February, because March eats into spring break and I don't like when it gets busy for then. April, probably consider it, certain dates, but that's what we consider when it comes to weather. And then, yeah, so how hot it will be, plus spring break, any American holidays, any UK half terms or Christmas break. So we look at all of those dates, and that starts narrowing down the windows of when we can go. Then we look at the season. So like I said, we've done Halloween and what is being celebrated in the parks and what time of year or season do we want to go. Are there any specific events, parties, sporting things, gigs that we want to go to? Is there anything we can tie up while we're over there that is important to us? So we always look at that as well. Obviously our budget, self-explanatory, but what can we afford and when? So that plays a big role. And the last one is when our family are available to have our dog Bonnie. So they're the 5 things that I always think about before I even go into booking something. Once I know those things, the foundations of what the trip looks like, the dates, then I can start booking. So now it's time to browse. There are now 3 main things that I consider when I'm browsing for a trip. Now my big top tip here is to make sure you're using incognito mode. If you're on Google Chrome, you just do File, New, Incognito window, and search for trips through this, because then your computer doesn't track your cookies and your search history and the prices don't increase and things like that. So the first thing I do when I'm looking and browsing is look for deals. Every different website or booking agents, travel agents, or a lot of the different big companies, they all offer deals. Disney are obviously the first place I looked for deals, because they offered the UK dining credit deal, for example, and that's where we looked first. Personally, I didn't think the value of how much credit I was getting was worth booking for 2023, hence why we ended up deciding to book before the credit offer. So I always look at what is available just to sort of weigh out the prices and compare it. Then I look at what hotel fits within our budget. So sometimes if there's a dining deal or a deal for a deluxe hotel, you can often get a better value than booking a value hotel. So then I decide if I want to stay in a better tier hotel, or actually if I want to come down into some of the cheaper hotels. I also take this opportunity to look into Airbnbs and hotels that are off-site, just in case, just have a look. But I'll be honest, I mostly only look at Disney properties. I like being on property, I like being in a Disney hotel, I like the perks. So for me, it makes the most sense. And lastly, when I'm browsing, I check a variety of websites. So obviously our number one is usually Attraction Tickets. They are one of my brand partners. I've booked with them as a customer a few times and I've worked with them. We just did Disneyland Paris with them and we got excellent service. However, unfortunately, they didn't have any availability for the hotels and dates that I wanted, and I did have quite a small window for this trip. So I wasn't able to book with them. Then my second choice was Virgin Holidays, because I actually have a bit of credit from a cancelled trip with them. So that was my second option. I called them, I tried to speak to like different people and just check every option, and it was unbelievably more expensive, unfortunately. And the woman on the phone said, if you can get it as a better price, then that is sort of what it is, isn't it? These are our dates, these are our prices, and there's nothing I can do. So even with our credit, it was still lots more expensive, unfortunately. But I would like to book a trip with Virgin Holidays because I do want to use this credit we have. So then my third and final option was booking directly with Disney. These are my top 3, and I always alternate between checking between them and Disney, booking directly with them. They had the hotel we wanted, which, drumroll please, was Pop Century. I am dying to stay at Pop Century. This is the hotel I decided to move us to from All Star Sports when that was closed, and I've had it in my head all this time, so I really want to do it because I fell in love with the Skyliner on the last trip. So yes, it was like a no-brainer for me. It had to be Pop. So Disney had the hotel and tickets for the dates we wanted, so I looked at that, and that's how I came about booking it. But shop around. Maybe you want to use a travel agent. Just try and see what's available. TUI are another one that fly to Walt Disney World. They also have flights into Melbourne, which is becoming quite popular for UK guests at the moment. It's about an hour and 15 out, so it's a bit of a transfer, but it's an option. I personally don't. I want to fly to the closest airport. I want to get there as quick as possible, but that's just my personal opinion. Shop around, check the airports, check the different packages, deals, and what's available, because even with booking with attraction tickets to Disneyland Paris, we had a €50 gift card as a part of an incentive, which we wouldn't have got booking directly with Disneyland Paris, if that makes sense. So sometimes the other third parties can give you like nice perks. Now it's time to book and this is exciting because I'm going to be telling you what order I book things in, what we've actually booked, just to give you some idea and reference, what we budget for, and then once I've shared all of that, we're going to talk about actually putting it into a spreadsheet and how I actually organise the trip as well. So the first thing, obviously, like I said, I booked was the hotel and tickets directly with Disney. With Pop's entry and the tickets, we ended up doing just under 14 days. I think it's actually 12 days or 12 nights, I can't remember. It ended up being £2,900, just under, for two of us, two adults, which I would say is definitely on the higher end of what I would book for a value hotel. But I think it's the time of year, everything was coming out really expensive. In fact, booking a Disney trip just feels like it's getting more and more expensive every time I book and change and look at things. So maybe keep that in mind. We are going Christmas, and then that meant the flights were also pretty expensive too. Flights came in at $1,700 for us both, and that is with Virgin Atlantic. I love flying with Virgin. I like collecting my air miles with them. I also fly with BA as well. They're a good one, but they're my number 1 and 2 choices always. And I did check both because ultimately, at the end of the day, it's whatever comes out at the best price and the best flight times. They're the things that matter the most to me. The next thing I book and think about is transfers to and from the airport from our house and to and from the airport to the hotel on the other side. So when it came to getting from Bournemouth to Heathrow, I know that this is niche, but obviously you will also have to consider how you get to the airport. And a lot of people can get trains or they live close to airports, and that's fine. But we are about 2 hours to Heathrow and Gatwick. And recently the car parking charges have just been through the roof. It's like £200 just to park your car, plus a tank of fuel. I've actually booked a private local taxi company to give us a transfer, which I have done a couple of times on my own, especially when I've done press trips and flown back from trips and stuff. So I decided this time to save Benji having to do long journeys, especially when you land at like 6, 7 a.m. and you've done a long day, a whole 2 weeks in the parks and a long trip. That journey home is quite a lot on both of us, especially Benj. So I wanted to make that as easy as possible and decided to book a private taxi transfer, and that was £300 return for us both, which ended up being exactly the same price when you factor in fuel. So I thought that that was the best option. Then I looked into the transfer from the airport, MCO, to Pop's entry, and obviously you used to be able to get free Disney shuttle service, but they don't do that anymore. It's called Mears Connect, which is the one that most people use to book. However, my lovely friend Victoria recommended the Sunshine Flyer, which is another option. These are like private companies that you pay for. You can book it in really easily on their websites and pay for it, and it's basically like a big bus that is shared and they drop you off to your hotel. And so we decided to book the Sunshine Flyer. It looked like a slightly nicer experience. It's exactly the same price for the dates we looked at, and I just thought it'd be a bit more interesting in the vlog because lots of people have already shared Mears Connect, so I thought we'd do the Sunshine Flyer. It's quite cute. You'll see what I mean in the vlogs. So that ended up being in pounds. I have put everything in dollars and pounds, but I'm just going to reference you in pounds. It was £54, 55 quid basically. So that was also what I booked. So I always try and think about the logistics, those big things. I always book as early as possible. Even if I'm booking airport parking, you want to do that as early as possible because the later you leave it, I feel like the more expensive it gets. Then I booked the shows that we wanted to do. Now I couldn't book these shows until I'd actually made a plan for the trip. Which I'll talk about in a minute, but just in terms of like booking and what we've paid for things, I thought it was important to share it at this point. So there were 2 shows and parties that I was absolutely non-negotiables for both of us. Number 1 is the Christmas party. Obviously, going at that time of year, we have to do the Christmas party. It's probably one of those things we do once and never again. I felt like that about Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween party. I did it and I don't feel the need to do it again. I probably will later on because Benji wants to do it. But Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party came out at £303 for us both, which is very expensive on top of tickets, but I do think you get quite a good value for that, and the evening itself, the experiences, the shows, the fireworks, the character meets, and all that kind of thing. So we will vlog that whole thing and let you know if we think it's worth the money, but we did pay for that. and we've also paid for Cirque du Soleil. This is the third time I've booked this show, and honestly they have been amazing, cancelling and refunding me. They refunded me twice now within like a few days, and so I'm very loyal and really want to support this show. It's in Disney Springs. I saw a Cirque du Soleil show when I was a little girl, and it stayed with me ever since, so it was a no-brainer that I had to see Drawn to Life, which is the Disney version Cirque du Soleil, and we're going to see that. And they have different tiers, different seats, different prices for wherever you do choose to sit, but we have booked seats that came in at £283 for us both. So again, a bit of an expense, so actually a massive expense on a party and a show, which I think I wouldn't necessarily normally always do that. It just so happens it's that time of year. And I want to be able to share and document all these things in the vlogs for you as well. So again, we'll let you know if we think it's worth it. Then I booked Universal tickets, which honestly, oh, it's so expensive. I just don't know the best ways to do Universal, but on the trip we were going to do in May, I did actually have the Hard Rock Hotel booked for one night. We just can't fit it into this trip with the parties and the shows and the other things. So we are only doing one day at Universal for this trip. I did plan to do 2 days on the other trip I booked, but that would be an option, because if you stay at one of the Universal hotels, you can actually get unlimited express passes at certain hotels included. So that's what I was going to do. It was going to be like a night stay there and do 2 nights, but I ended up for this trip booking 1 day, 2 park, so like a hopper. Then I added on the express passes, and they do have an unlimited tier where you can just ride the ones that are included as many times as you want, but we ended up booking, I think it was $200 to do 1 time per express pass ride. So like you could ride the Mummy once and Rip Ride Rocket or Hagrid's or whatever. Actually no, I don't think Hagrid's is included, but either way, those Universal tickets came in at £535. So for a 1 day experience for 2 of us, but we're going to be maximising that. We're going to be there from the beginning of the park opening right to the end of that day, and some of the rides there are so epic. We have not done a few rides there yet that are new for us. I've not done Hagrid's yet. I've not done the Velocicoaster, and I'm just really looking forward to it. And I think they celebrate Christmas stuff there too, so we'll be able to enjoy some of the festivities they've got going on too, which will be really great. So the other things that we budget for is food, tipping, Ubers, shopping, and Genie Plus / lightning lanes. So we've got quite a few things to think about there. When it comes to food, I haven't considered how much I'm going to budget per day yet. I think you kind of have to do it a bit backwards, decide which sit down meals you want to do and roughly how much they're going to cost, and then work out if you're going to be eating breakfast bars that you've picked up from Target, or if you want to sit down and eat 3 meals, or if you want maybe a really big brunch and then a small lunch, or maybe you skip lunch. Like, you kind of have to work out what will be good for you. But in all honesty, you're looking at least £50 to £75 per person, I would say, per day, easily, because when you take into like snacks and drinks, ice creams, you know, like the cheeseburger spring rolls in Magic Kingdom, Gideon's cookies. Oh my gosh, guys, just thinking about the food makes me so excited. Yeah, it's quite a lot of money, so that's something we'll have to think about. Tipping is a no-brainer. We do tip our waiters and servers when we're in sit-down restaurants, and our cleaning, mousekeeping. We need Ubers. I need to work out Ubers when we're actually going to be needing and using Uber, because we're mostly staying at Disney, but we'll be Ubering to Target. We want to go to the Cheesecake Factory as well, and to Universal. But other than that, there won't be any need for us to go many other places. We're not doing any sports games this trip. We're not going to any other areas or parts of Orlando. I don't know how much I'm going to need for Ubers, but I need to think that through. I have actually done a whole budgeting video that I made about almost a year ago now for the May trip, but it's still very applicable. So if you do want to go back and listen to that, you can. We originally were going to have a fly drive. We were going to hire a car for the last trip, but hire cars, oh my gosh, so expensive. So we decided to scrap that idea. And I also thought that a hire car would just be another added layer of stress for Benj. So I just thought that it was probably logistically better to just take that experience out. I think we would like to have a car one day, especially if we do a longer trip and we do more things, but it just didn't seem worth it. So I scrapped having to have car hire, obviously, hence why we've got the Sunshine Flyer to and from the airport. Shopping, hard for me to put a price on that. It really comes down to close to the time how much money I actually have to spend. On my last trip I had quite a big chunk because I hadn't been in so long and I had a little savings pot for myself. But yeah, depends how much I want to treat myself to pins and ears and spirit jerseys and all that. So yes, we'll have the Christmas party, so there'll definitely be Christmassy things I want to get, and I'll probably be getting Christmas gifts and things too, so I need to look at that close to the time. And then Genie Plus and Lightning Lanes, again, I haven't quite decided if we'll have Genie Plus every day, which individual Lightning Lane attractions we want to pay for. So again, I'm going to look at that close to the time. If you want me to do more of an in-depth, like, final plans, budget and bucket list video, then let me know. I can do that much closer to the time. But right now at this stage, I have it in my head that I roughly know we're going to want to do that, and I'm going to have to think about that logistically and what we can afford. And then other expenses, which we've already done and have covered, but I think obviously it's important to highlight and mention, they're boring but necessary, is travel insurance and your ESTA, so your visa. So that has gone up slightly in price, I think, but ours is still valid. I've double checked them both, and I've printed copies as well. I always take printed copies of our ESTAs just because it gives me peace of mind. And travel insurance is obviously, we have specific insurance now for Benji with his heart condition, and mine is covered through my bank. So that's everything I've booked and paid for so far, everything I've planned out. So now, with all of that in mind, I know exactly what we want to do. I've got a good idea and feel for the trip. We're going to talk about planning it and getting a spreadsheet together and what I like to do for that. So I'm actually going to bring out my laptop in front of me now for this section. Once it's time to start planning a trip and putting everything into place, I will sit down with Benj and talk about our priorities. So anything that is a must do for him, our bucket list, our absolute dreams and goals. For example, he really likes cowfish at Universal City Walk, and I really want to try Ohana for dinner maybe, or breakfast, I haven't quite decided. And I talk him through what restaurants I think he might enjoy, because I have more of an experience. I also would quite like to take him to Tepan Edo. We've got Space 220. There's quite a lot of restaurants I would really love to try with him, but I'm not 100% sure what we're going to be able to do. I think this trip I actually want less dining in for once. Normally I'm like, dining, yeah, because we've had the dining plan in the past. But this time I really want our plans to actually be fairly loose, because I want Benj to be able to communicate to me if he wants to take a break. And if we have a lot of dining in, that might restrict us, and he might feel obliged to, like, you know, power through or make it to that restaurant reservation. Obviously you can cancel things, but I want to keep our plans fairly loose, just because this is a trip that I've had to navigate a bit differently. My point is that we sit down and talk to each other about what is important, and I just think that is such a big part of a trip. This is not just my trip, even though I'm the one planning and organising the whole thing. I always take into consideration what's important to him. Like in the past, he really wanted to see a Bucks game, so we went and saw the American football, and we made that priority and factored that in. Once we've had our chats and we're all on the same page and everything's booked and we started paying for things, and you know, sometimes we have deposits on things and we have to pay them off later on, and we have to put that into our savings plan and put it in the diary, and when we're paying, oh my gosh, there's so many things to logistically think about. But then we get our spreadsheet. Oh my gosh, this is when it gets exciting. So I use a Google spreadsheet in Google Docs, like in the Google Drive, and this is currently what mine looks like. I've cleared it all out and I've just done 7 days just to make it easier for you to see. I can't remember how I did this, but I've locked in the times as well. So when I swipe to the right, you can see this column A stays locked, which is really helpful when I'm like planning. So I've put it basically blank so I can roughly show you. I don't really mind sharing a lot of our plans. I was a bit more precious about it in the past, but I obviously don't want to tell you all the logistics, exactly where I'm going to be on what days, because that is just for safety reasons. I'm not going to share every tiny detail, but I am happy to sort of go through bits with you. So first of all, I will check the holidays and parties. So as you can see down here, I have Park Pass, which we'll go on to in a minute, hours, party nights, and this stands for extra magic hours. So I have put in when there is a Christmas party. Now you don't, sometimes if you book really far in advance, you don't always know when these dates are. So when they get released is the first thing that I will always try and make sure I add in. So I can see that Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party, that's what that stands for, is on a Tuesday, Thursday, Friday and Sunday. They are the dates that that party is running. So ideally, if you don't want to go to those parties, you wouldn't really necessarily want to maybe go to Magic Kingdom on those days. If you are wanting to see the fireworks, then you need to make sure you go on Wednesday or Saturday. So that's the first thing I'll always put in. Now, I know we want to see and go to this party, and I know we want to go closer to the beginning of the week, and that's because we'll have a bit more energy and I'll be excited and I want to like have that festive spirit, but also not necessarily relevant to most of you, but I need to consider the fact that the Christmas vlogs will go up first around Christmas time. So I don't want to be doing the Christmas party too late in the trip when it's a later vlog, because then you see it a bit too late. Does that make sense, hopefully? So I know that if we travel on this Monday, for example, I've left quite a lot of this logistics. I've just done a Monday to Sunday, but I know that another thing I have to consider is jet lag and how it shapes the first 2 days. So I know that once we land this evening here, I don't normally put in a park. I just don't want that stress of trying to get somewhere and force ourselves and push ourselves through. Some people do, and that's fine. If you've got the energy and you're pumped and you've got the Disney adrenaline pumping through you, then you do you. But for us, it's not a priority. So I have put in Cheesecake Factory for dinner and Target. I think this would be a really good idea. Keep it light. I have done this in the past, and actually I think on our last trip we didn't even go anywhere. I think we literally got to the hotel and went to bed. So it really depends on how we're feeling. But I know that we're going to be too tired to do anything here, and I know that we're going to be too tired this part of the second day. Because of jet lag, we'll be up probably 5 or 6 a.m. So on day 2, we'll be really excited about this first part of the day, and then we'll start flagging here. So I always think about that. So I know we're not going to want to do Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party on day 2 in the evening, for example, because I know jet lag will kick in and we'll be too tired and we won't enjoy it. So with this in mind, it's not on this day, so I know we need to do it on this Thursday. So I think the party you can get in from like 4 o'clock, so you can see I've got the times across the side there. And what I'll do is I'll just merge the cells. I know a lot of you probably know how to use Google spreadsheets, so it's not a spreadsheets, tutorial. It's just to show you how I do things. So I've merged this because this is now blocked off for Christmas, and I'm going to make it a little bit nicer. So, you can obviously change colours. If we've got the Christmas party in the afternoon, it makes the most sense that we are in Magic Kingdom that day. So I will add Magic Kingdom to the park we're going to that day, and I know I need to book a park pass. Now I've talked about park passes, but currently Disney still operate it. You still have to book for free which park you're going to on which days. So I've got that in the bottom so that when I go to book park passes later on, I know I need a Magic Kingdom one. It's probably likely that we will have a late night that night then, so we'll probably stay out late and maybe start later on that day, because we don't need to get to the park for opening. So maybe we'll have breakfast somewhere. So maybe we'll have breakfast at like 9-10 a.m. somewhere, and maybe we can have it near Magic Kingdom, and that is how I'll plan that day. So as you can see already, my first sort of day has already started to take shape. My next thing is I start adding parks in that are obvious to us. So let's say that this is our last day. We always like to try and end on a Magic Kingdom day. This is a priority for Benj. He likes to see the castle last, and so do I. So I've put it in there, and as you can see, I mean, obviously this is 7 days. We have longer usually, but I'm just trying to show you for reference. So we put that in there. Another thing that is obvious to us, but maybe not to everyone, but we try and avoid Epcot on a weekend. So I just think it's really busy. It's much more crowded. A lot of the locals head to Epcot. So I will try and avoid Epcot on a Friday, Saturday, really, if I can help it. So I know that I want to put Epcot in the middle of the week here. So that's starting to take shape. So I know I need a Hollywood Studios and an Animal Kingdom in here. So maybe Animal Kingdom is the first day, first park, because it's my favourite. And I know I'm going to want Hollywood Studios in here. And then maybe Saturday is a water park day if you're going in a hot season. Like Christmas won't be so hot and water parks aren't actually always open. However, if it's September, October, maybe it's a water park day in the morning, or maybe you go to the outlets, or maybe it's actually a Disney Springs day and you're sleeping in, and maybe this is the day we go and see Cirque du Soleil. So then again, I'd have in here. As you can see, I've now got my parks at the top. So I know I need to book an Animal Kingdom park pass. I need an Epcot here. I need a Hollywood Studios. I will probably book a park pass even on a day that I've blocked out, maybe not for park. So if I've got Magic Kingdom in twice maybe, and I'm like, okay, definitely want to do Hollywood Studios twice, so maybe I'll book another Hollywood Studios, or maybe I'll book an extra Epcot, whatever. So you can see that I try and alternate so that I try and do all the parks twice and I don't have two of the same days next to each other. So that is how that takes shape. Later on, when they release the park hours, I do then add the hours in and also when extra magic time is. So then I can decide if we want to get up early and go to those. And if you're staying in a deluxe resort, you can also have extra magic time in the evenings. I did look at these when I was at the boardwalk, but it just didn't line up for anything I was doing. But you can stay later, so definitely keep that in mind because there are perks for staying in a Disney resort. Then the only other thing I'll do once I've sort of ironed out that this is how my thing's looking, I'll start adding in like Animal Kingdom. I definitely want to go to Yak and Yeti for dinner, so I'll start adding in like Yak and Yeti, blah blah blah, and you start adding in things you want to do that are important, rough times maybe, shows you definitely want to see. So for example, Fantasmic's not on, I don't think, at the moment at Hollywood Studios, but let's say it is and it's at 9 o'clock, I will put that in, Fantasmic. This is just an example to show you. Harmonious actually is on, so we could put Harmonious in Epcot. Then I know that those shows are on and I need to work around that. Like Epcot I know doesn't open normally until like 10, 11. So I would like make a note to myself to don't go early because I've done that before. So go to Epcot, for example, because then when I go to look at our schedule for that day, I'm like, oh yeah, there's no point rushing for an 8 a.m. Epcot when it's not even open. That makes sense? So my spreadsheet is shaping nicely. We've got the parks, we've got restaurants, we have the shows, different fireworks that are on, all of that, and it's starting to take shape, and that is how I organise our trips. I have changed our park passes 3 times so far for this December trip, but I'm pretty confident I'm happy with it now. So if you haven't done so yet, just book your park passes and you can always change them, swap them around. They're really easy to do in your My Disney Experience account. So I'll do that. And the only other thing that I also do at this point is I check the crowd calendars. These used to be really helpful. They're on loads of different websites. I use Undercover Tourist and they have a crowd calendar which basically gives you an idea, sort of like a traffic light system, of which parks are going to be busier than others. And that's how I started to realise that like Epcot's differently busy on a weekend, for example, Magic Kingdom. So I like to look, but I do take it with a pinch of salt because especially in these weird COVID times, it's hard to really predict exactly which parks are going to be busier than others. Obviously, if there is a party in Magic Kingdom, then it's going to be busier in the park that day. So if you're not doing the party, then logistically it makes more sense to go on a non-party day. So I like to look at the crowd calendars. They're free to use. It's another tool. It's another bit of information. And sometimes it does help me shape where we go. So if I'm like, oh, I don't know where to go on that Saturday, I'll look at the crowd calendar and see what it suggests. Then it's down to booking dining 60 days in advance at this point. So I will decide exactly where I want to eat and my sort of preference on days and times. When I'm booking dining, I write it in my notes, the day and time I want, and I always have a backup plan. So if they don't have your time and reservation available, maybe have a second option or idea and check that. And don't be disheartened if they don't have your restaurant, it's not available, because you can always rock up at the restaurant on the day, see if they have anything, any cancellations, check while you're on your trip as well, and just keep refreshing it right up to the lead up of the trip, because you can snag things still. The really, really popular ones like Be Our Guest and like Le Cellier, we love, and that gets booked really quick. Like those busier, more popular ones do get booked quickly, so you do want to act on your 60 days. If you're staying at a Disney resort, I'm sure it's still 60 days, isn't it? I think it is anyway. And I believe that UK guests can book the first 10 days of their trip. I want to say that's right. If it's not, correct me. But obviously that's the only final thing I will need to do in terms of booking and planning. I think that's everything to cover in terms of booking a Walt Disney World trip. Please let me know if this has helped you in any way and leave your top tips below, because it's helpful for others. People love to read the comments, especially on my channel. So please do let us know your countdowns. When are you going? What season you've loved the most, all that kind of stuff. And especially if you have any tips for Christmas, please send them my way, because it's my first time there at that time of year, so I'm very, very excited. So big thank you for watching this. Make sure you do click subscribe and give it a thumbs up if it has helped and you've enjoyed it. And this is the start of hopefully lots of Disney content planning. I'd love to do like outfits and organising that and planning the outfits and stuff, so let me know if you're interested in those kind of things. But yeah, be back very soon with more videos. Thanks for watching. See you soon. Bye.